Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Language Arts Gallery. Today, we're going to continue talking about how to write a point-by-point comparative essay. And today, I want to focus on what a great conclusion for this type of essay includes. So let's go ahead and get started here. And I want to talk about what the format of this essay is. Now, the point-by-point essay is a little bit different than the block method. In the point-by-point comparative essay, we want to start by engaging the reader. We're going to talk about what's being compared. That's our topic of comparison. We're going to talk about why this comparison is important. That's our significance of comparison. We've chosen 3 points on which we're going to compare these two topics. Those are the points of comparison. And then, of course, our thesis statement. Remember, each point of comparison is going to get its own body paragraph. And then finally, we get to our conclusion, which is what we're going to focus on today. We're going to signpost, we're going to restate all this important information that we talked about in the introduction, and we're going to leave our reader with a final thought. So here I've got a sample of what a good point-by-point comparative essay looks like. I'm going to let you pause the video and read through this. I'm not going to read it for you. And then after you finish reading, we'll come back and we'll continue. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what a great conclusion includes. So one of the hallmarks of academic writing, something I always teach my students, is academic writing is very mechanical. The academic essay is very mechanical. You're going to tell your audience what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, then you tell them what you told them. So that's the introduction, the body, and the conclusion of our academic essay. We're not going to introduce any new information in our conclusion. We're simply telling our audience what we've already told them. So now let's look at what the parts of a good conclusion include. The first is restating our topics of comparison. Those are the 2 things we're comparing. In my mentor text that I just showed you, we were comparing good teachers with bad teachers. Then we have our points of comparison. These are the ways in which we're comparing these 2 things. Now, each point of comparison, I said, gets its own body paragraph. We want to tell our audience the significance of comparison. In other words, why are we writing this? Why is this comparison important? Our audience needs to understand why they're reading this essay. And then finally, we want to end with a thesis statement. Remember, good academic writing is based on the notion of argument. A comparative essay is the same. We don't want to just list similarities and differences. We're arguing something in doing so. So we could have a very simple thesis like they're more similar, they're more different, they're as similar as they are different. Or we could have something a little bit stronger, a little bit more compelling. We could say they're more different, and that speaks to the necessity of having great teachers in our school, or how great teachers impact the learning process. And we should show that when we're communicating those differences. So we're restating all of these things, but we're also letting our audience know that they're coming to the end of our essay. This is called signposting. And we also want to leave the reader with a final thought. Now let's talk about signposting. This is the first thing a good conclusion should include. This should signal to our reader that they've gotten to the end of our essay. I know a lot of teachers say, oh, I hate teaching my students to write in conclusion. I think it's fantastic. It's standardized, it's easy, kids remember it, and also it's important for our reader. Our reader needs to know that they're coming to the end of the essay. We can use other language in addition to in conclusion, to conclude, to sum up, to close, or in closing. I personally don't like to sum up, but again, it's a matter of personal preference. I think to sum up is a little bit too informal. So sometimes we combine signposting with restating the points of comparison and the thesis. And I've got an example here. In conclusion, good teachers and bad teachers exhibit tremendous differences in how they treat students, how they explain lessons, and how they help when students struggle. Right there, I've got my points of comparison. Making these good teachers central to student success in the classroom. There is my thesis statement. Now, I think this is perfectly fine for a conclusion. However, this is simply a restatement of exactly what we've said in the introduction. So you can do that. And I actually encourage this, particularly when I'm working with language learners who might struggle with paraphrasing. I don't want them taking all their time working on sentence level skills. I want to enforce or reinforce the importance of a rhetorical approach to academic writing. So I want them to focus on restating the points of comparison, the thesis statement, signposting for their reader, and if they do that using the same words, that's terrific. If you've got students who are able to paraphrase, we can use different language. We can say, in conclusion, great teachers play a strong role in student success. Good teachers and bad teachers show stark differences in their treatment of students, explanation of lessons, and the manner in which they support struggling students. So I've communicated the same thing. I've just used different words. Now let's restate the significance of comparison. We want our reader to understand why our comparative essay is important. So I've got that highlighted in red here. It says, understanding these differences is key to promoting positive student perceptions of school and learning. Fantastic. And then I want to leave my reader with a concluding thought. I think this is often the most difficult aspect because this requires our writers to be a little bit creative. So we want to leave our audience with something to think about, but we also don't want to introduce anything new. So here, highlighted in red, I say, after all, the impact of a teacher lasts long after the lesson has ended. So I think that's a really powerful, really positive, really compelling statement, but I'm not introducing anything new. Now I want to talk briefly about transition words. So the first part of our conclusion, we use that phrase in conclusion, as well as some other phrases to signpost, in order to let our reader know they've reached the end of the essay. So this is really important because it's just like when we're writing an introduction, we want to give our reader a roadmap so they know where our essay is going. We want to help guide our reader through our essay. So we need to let them know not just when they're getting to the end of the essay, but we need to let them know when we're moving to a different point, when we're expressing a relationship between two ideas, or when we've finished talking about one point, and then we're moving to a new paragraph where we're going to talk about something else. So let's look at a few examples here. We might use words to talk about chronological order. Now we know first, second, next, then last. We can also say, first of all, to begin, before, after, as soon as. When we're giving examples, we can say, for example, or for instance, such as, take the case of. So there are lots of different phrases we can use to let our audience know we're presenting an example. Presenting additional ideas. I think this is really important in academic writing. Further, in addition, moreover, because remember, academic writing is based on arguments. We don't want to just mention one thing. We want to give additional ideas. So I think familiarizing yourself with these phrases is really important. And then reinforcing something, again, really important in academic writing. In fact, indeed, of course, I think of course is a little bit less formal, or clearly, I think that's another great word that we can use to reinforce a point. We also want to use transitions when we're starting to present our argument or our big ideas in support of our thesis. So in our first paragraph, we might say, to begin with, to start. And then once we've finished, we want to let our audience know that we finished one idea and we're moving on to the next idea. I've got that highlighted here in red. Beyond their treatment of students, stark differences exist in how these teachers teach. And then I move on to another another key difference. That's another great transition word. Another key difference between good teachers and bad teachers is how they explain lessons. So you can see that link, how they teach and how they explain lessons. So I'm moving from one idea to the next. And when I get to that third big idea, I say, finally. So all of these things help to make our writing more cohesive. We've talked a lot about coherence. Coherence is understandability, making sure that our argument makes sense. We also want to make sure that the argument we're presenting, it all flows really nicely. It all comes together and makes sense to the reader. That's what writers describe as cohesiveness, and transition words and phrases help to make our writing cohesive. So you can find this lesson as well as all of the graphic organizers that go with it in my Teachers Pay Teachers store, which is linked in the video description. You've got this graphic organizer to help you create a great conclusion. This has examples of how students can signpost, how they're going to include all the important information from their introduction, and a space to draft that new conclusion. All right, so thank you so much for joining us, and I will see you in our next lesson at the Language Arts Gallery.